Nick, good to see you. We're doing a little myth busting today. Your 401k is not a retirement plan. Everyone's favorite retirement account, the 401k, is a great way to save, but it is just a tool, not a strategy. So, what are some of the biggest risks of relying on just a tax deferred 401k for retirement?
Well, like you said, it's just a tool. It's not the blueprint. It's just
Mhm.
a tool, not the blueprint. Um, it's like having a hammer and calling it a house. The hammer is the tool. You still need a plan. You still need a blueprint. You still need to know how to use that hammer, and you need a whole bunch of other tools too. So the main question I think a lot of people have with their 401ks is they try and figure out, well, how do I take that 401k and use it for income? How do I take that and use it for income? And usually what happens is they retire with a 401k and then they just figure they'll treat it like they did every other bank account or that they've had, is when they need money, just go to it and take some money out. But the thing is, that's a little bit different than a bank account. It's your life savings. You got to be able to take this thing, optimize it so that it lasts as long as you do.
Mhm.
And so it's not just a 401k is a tool. It's not a paycheck. It's a pile. It's literally a pile of money, albeit a taxable pile of money.
Yeah, go into that a little bit more. It's tax deferred. So while we may think we have $1 million in our 401k, that's not actually the case.
Well, all that money in your 401k looks nice on paper.
Yes.
And when I say 401k, I don't want people to listen and say, "Oh, I have a thrift savings plan. That's not me," or "I have a 403b and that's not me," or "I have an IRA and that's not me." Nick's talking about 401k. I'm using the term 401k, and we're talking about 401k as a catch-all.
Right.
401k is a pre-tax account that you set up through work. The same as a 403b. A 403b would just be if you worked at a hospital or if you worked at a charity. 401a, thrift savings plan if you work for the government. An IRA if you saved it out on your own and not in a corporation or a government entity. So all these things that when I say 401k, that's what I'm talking about. It's pre-tax money. It's not all yours. Uncle Sam is actually he's your silent partner. You could also call him your he's the quiet guy sitting next to you that says every time you bring in $1, he wants 20 cents of it. And so when you have withdrawals from those accounts are taxed as income. And if interest rates rise, that 401k could turn into literally a ticking tax time bomb, like you said. And we wrote a book called Diffuse: the 7 Steps to Saving Your 401k and IRA from the Ticking Tax Time Bomb. I'll give a shameless plug. Go to diffusethetaxbomb.com, diffusethetaxbomb.com, and you can download, we'll actually ship a free copy of that book to you. We set up that website, diffusethetaxbomb.com. But here's why it's a ticking tax time bomb. One of the reasons, there's a couple, but let's say it's 73 years old. You have what are called required minimum distributions. You saved your money in these pre-tax accounts. The government comes knocking on your door and they say, "Hey, we want you to start withdrawing money out, whether you want to or not." When you're 73, it works out to about, let's say you had $1 million. This is, straight out $1 million, easy number to use. They would probably tell you got to take out like $37,000 or something like that. You're 73. We're going to make you take out $37,000. But I've run the numbers. By the time you're 83, if you still had $1 million, they would make you take out $56,000. That's like 51% more withdrawal as you got older. And if you're 93 years old, it's almost like 10%. So if you have $1 million, you'd have to withdraw $100,000 to make Uncle Sam happy. So that's why without a tax strategy, boom, you can have these unexpected taxes pop up because you didn't plan on having more taxes later on in life, but the
Right.
government set up these tables to where you do have to pay more taxes later on. And you can see that here. If you only had to take out a $40,000 withdrawal and you're single, you might be in a 12% bracket. But if it's $100,000, now all of a sudden you're close to that 24% bracket. So this is why it's a ticking tax time bomb.
Right. And a lot of people forget or assume they'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, but it's often those RMDs, among other things, that push you into a higher tax bracket in retirement. Glad we got to talk that through. So I think, though, there are some people, Nick, who are going to watch this and say, "But Nick, why would I want to pay my taxes now?"
Pay taxes for the seed, not the harvest. So if I was a farmer,
It's funny you say this. I just came across this
oh, okay.
because I hear it so often. And then I saw this, I was like, yay, finally a good visual. But yeah, it kind of puts it into stark perspective how a Roth IRA can be incredibly powerful when it comes to creating wealth.
I know, right? I mean, all this guy had to do was pay taxes on the 10-cent seed, and now he's got this huge tree.
Yeah.
That if anybody's gone out and tried to buy a fully grown tree and put it in their yard, you know how expensive these things can be. Palm trees, all those things can be very, very expensive. So would you rather pay taxes on the seed or the harvest? And I would rather pay taxes on the seed, kind of like that guy looking at that tree. He's probably wishing that he had. And all this is coming about even more so because of what is happening to our national debt. Our national debt's skyrocketing. We're at 36.7 trillion, and this is a clock that we use on our that we talk about at our live events too. usdebtclock.org. You can download it, and you can actually see what's happening in real time to the national debt. Well, we're at $36.7 trillion. And they interviewed David M. Walker, who is the former Comptroller General of the United States government. And they asked him, they said, well, we're 30 some odd trillion dollars in debt. What's going to happen, to taxes? And he actually said, no. We're way more. We're like triple, quadruple more in debt than that. And they're like, no, it's like 30 some odd trillion dollars. We're not more than that. And he's like, yes, we are. That amount that you see on that US debt clock is only what we've spent so far. That does not include all the promises we've already made. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on the debt. You add all that together, we're significantly more in debt than that number shows. And when they asked David Walker this, they said, what's going to happen? And he said, taxes are probably going to have to go up significantly, if not double from where they are right now. Mm-hmm. And so this chart that you bring up, this is the historical highest tax rates going back in time. And you're going to see there was a period of time, it's hard to see here, 1940, something like that. It was up at 90%, something like that.
Yeah, 1945, 94%.
So you can bet the politicians are looking at this saying, oh, we have a lot more room to maneuver taxes. We can push it up a little bit more because, heck, look at the past. It's been higher in the past. So shoot, we can do it now. And that's probably, those are the conversations happening behind doors.
Absolutely.
All that I'm saying is this: your 401k is a ticking tax time bomb. There is a window of opportunity now while tax rates are lower to try and make some of that money more tax efficient. Basically pay taxes on the seed so you don't have to pay taxes on the harvest. Mm-hmm.
And just to circle back to a point that you made earlier, Roth accounts do not have required minimum distributions. Right. So those distributions won't be pushing you into a higher tax bracket.
Exactly. You're cleansing it of its taxes now. Yeah. And then what happens is there's no minimum distributions. Whatever it grows to is completely tax-free. And even when it passes on to your beneficiaries, it's also completely tax-free. So there's a lot of benefits to it. It's just the hard part is getting into the Roth because you have to kind of take that, right now. But the end is going to outweigh the means, in my mind, if you look out the next 20, 30 years.
Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned in the beginning, it all comes back to turning your savings, your pot of cash, into an income stream. So what should we consider in addition to our 401ks and everything else?
So look at the 401k again, going back, you mentioned it at the forefront. You said it's a tool. It is. I look at a 401k as almost a tool, or it's the fuel for your retirement. It's the fuel for it. You just don't want that fuel to run out. I kind of remember when my big first flight was, we were going to Hawaii, and at the time lived in Cincinnati, and there was 3 flights. It went from Cincinnati we flew a real small plane from, I think, Cincinnati to Chicago, picked up another plane, which was a DC-10 from Chicago to, I think, Los Angeles, and then a 747 across. And I use this analogy of a DC-10. A DC-10, and this is like 1986, a DC-10 has 3 engines. It has an engine on each wing, and it has an engine on the tail in the back, right in the center. And I almost look at retirement as like a DC-10 with 3 engines. You just have 3 retirement engines. The very first engine that you need is a protected income engine that can provide, an engine that can provide dependable, reliable, and consistent income that maximizes your Social Security, provides maybe lifetime income, where you take some of that 401k money and create a private pension that pays you no matter how much turbulence you actually have. So that would be like one engine of that plane. But then the second engine of that plane is a growth engine, because we got to keep up with inflation.
Right.
So that's the engine that can keep your money growing so that you can keep up with all that stuff and stay airborne. And then you got a third engine, that's your tax-free engine. So you have income that you can get to that you can pull out without triggering taxes. We all know that movie Sully, where he landed the U.S. Airways pilot who landed the plane when both engines went out in the Hudson. That's just what you don't want in retirement, is be forced because you put the wrong, maybe you don't even have engines on your plane. Maybe you're trying to fly with one engine. And that's really what a 401k is it's one engine. It's the growth engine, but you still got to have the other two.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we got to have this conversation, because I think it is different from how we were all taught growing up. 401k plan has the word plan in its name. You think you're set for retirement. And then as you start learning more about, of course, taxes and everything else, it becomes apparent that it's just not enough to get you to and through retirement. So, Nick, if somebody wants to talk to you more about tax diversification, making sure they have a tax strategy for retirement too, which is essential, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, and that's the thing is they can call our phone number, 844-GROUP-10, and talk to our team and schedule a quick 15-minute call. But this is what I find a lot is people will have one of 5 financial plans. They'll have the investment side of it, the 401k, the tool, but they miss the income part to it, the tax part to it, the healthcare part, which is a huge expense, and then the estate plan part of it. So you almost have these 5 pillars that you need. I guess we could go back to that analogy and say, what if we had an airplane with 5 engines? I don't know if that exists. I'm sure it does. But you almost need all 5 of those things to keep going. And a lot of people, they just have the investment plan, which is great. You have the tool, but the part is now, while there's a window of opportunity, let's take that tool and use the fuel that you've already created in that 401k to power the other engines on your airplane, so that you can take off into the sky and go as long as you can in retirement and not have to worry about having to land.
Right. Peace of mind. Yeah. Nick, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Great being with you, Aaron.